Hello, it's Debbie Gilbert from the Business Awards show, and I'm also the owner of the Best Business Women Awards. And today I'm joined by Ronia Fraser, who's a narcissistic abuse recovery coach, and she's going to be sharing a bit about her business today, her awards journey, and also sharing why you should be entering business awards. So she's an award-winning coach. Delighted that you're here today. So let's hear a bit more about you and your business.
Thanks, Debbie, for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. And as you just said, yes, I'm a narcissistic abuse recovery coach, which is very specific in what I do. I'm an internationally certified trauma recovery coach. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I'm one of the leading experts in the field of narcissistic abuse recovery, which means I work with abuse survivors from all over the world, and I help them get back on their feet, regain their mental health, and recover who they were always meant to be. And so that's basically what I do.
So what brought you into that world?
Well, needless to say, you don't end up working in a field like that unless it has happened to you. So I'm a survivor of narcissistic abuse myself. And when it happened to me, I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that something was really, really wrong, because at that time I was really what I felt on top of the world. And I had a very successful career in the music industry. I was head of finance for a like $100 million business operation. I was living in LA at the time. I had the palm trees, I had the sunshine, and then I got involved with the wrong guy. And literally overnight, my whole life that I had built for myself came crashing down, which obviously it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And as a result of what happened in LA, I literally just had to drop everything. I had to leave my job, which meant I had to give up my visa, my work visa that I had for the US. I had to, leave my house. I had to leave behind my friends, my whole life that I had built for myself. But I knew if I stayed, I would be dead within the next 4 weeks. And it was something I could feel. So it was kind of like, you have to get, if you want to live, you have to get out now. So I got out, I came back here. And again, I didn't know what had hit me. I had no idea. I was always a very high functioning person. All of a sudden, I wasn't functioning at all. I was struggling with my mental health, anxiety. I had blackouts, I had nightmares. Like, there was so much going on, which was so untypically me. And of course, I wanted to fix it. And I went to therapy really religiously every week, trying to find something that would work. And I got really, really frustrated by the lack of results. And when we think about it, it was like 6 years ago. So 6 years ago, narcissistic abuse wasn't a thing. It didn't mean anything. Whereas now it's this buzzword. You type it into Google and you have so much information. 6 years ago, that wasn't the case. So I got really frustrated. I had a great therapist. She was absolutely wonderful. But because it's such a specific thing, I didn't get any results. And I got so frustrated by that, because I was like, okay, listen, something happened to me and there has to be a way to fix this, right? I wasn't always like that. And I was told, well, that's just how it is now. And it's just something you need to accept. Your life is just different now. And I said, no, I really can't, because for me, it wasn't a life worth living. And I basically then went on this mission to find something that would reverse the damage as effectively as it was caused. And I don't know, call it German efficiency. I just needed the results. And at that point in time, I was at a stage where I literally had nothing left to lose. I had already lost everything. And I think when you reach that kind of point, it allows you to go all in, because to be honest, if I had died in the process of finding something, it would have been fine as well, because I had nothing left. But of course, I wanted to live. So that was the motivation. And I went on this mission to find something. And once I did, it took me like 5 months to become symptom free. And that was without any specialist help or support or application. And basically what I then did was, and I guess because my brain works like that, I'm a business person, I have a very methodical brain. um, so what I then did was I got trained in everything that worked for me, and then modified everything, tweaked it for the particular purpose of narcissistic abuse recovery, which now obviously with my understanding and, working in that field for the last 5 years, and the training allows me to really be very, very specific. And that's what gets the results, because there is no second guessing. There is, if somebody comes to me and they can't express themselves because they don't understand what has happened, it's fine, because I get it. And so basically, that's how the narcissistic abuse recovery business was born. And yeah, I've been doing that ever since. And obviously now we're getting to the point where all of a sudden it does mean something, right?
Yeah, it's more widely known about, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of work to be done. So
Absolutely.
that's why the work you're doing is so valuable. And it's like some businesses are born out of our personal experiences, and that you have then brought that to the fore and then gone and got the training and adapted that training. When anyone comes to you, you fully understand their situation.
Yeah, and they usually come to me when they're literally at the end of their road, because they've tried everything,
yes,
and nothing really worked, because textbook just doesn't apply.
no.
And I think another thing that's really, really important to keep in mind is that abuse survivors very rarely actually fit into that box of an abuse survivor. So the women that, and I work with men as well, but mainly women, the women that come to me, they are really, high achieving women. They are doctors, they are founders, they're executives, they're senior managers. They are those strong women that have all their ducks in a row, and then all of a sudden their life comes crashing down. And I think what's the biggest challenge for women like us when that happens to us is that actually nobody takes us seriously, because they know us as those, like really badass women who, they're just sorted out. And I remember when I was looking for help, everybody was just like, it's Ronnie, she'll figure it out. When actually in reality, I was fighting for my life, but nobody took it seriously. And especially with highly successful women, it actually happens so much more than we would think, but because it's behind closed doors. And then we also have that personality of being that fighter, right? So when we show up at work, nobody would ever notice that that's what we are dealing with at home. And when I look back, I mean, I was head of finance, I was doing my MBA at the same time. It's insane. Like, how did I even do that? But for some reason, it's a personality thing, right? And as business women, I think it's just how we are wired. And nobody would have ever known that something wasn't right, because at work, I was just performing 100% as I always would. But then I would leave the office, and that's where the nightmare then basically began. And to be honest, I think my work and my studies, I think that's what saved me, because that was that part of my brain that kept sane, because it kept me really, in the real world, if you will.
And do your clients come from all over the world?
Yes.
Or, yeah. So, yeah. And how are people finding you? Through your reputation, your website, etc.?
Yeah, so there's a lot of word of mouth by now, obviously, because if you get results, people talk about it, and we are talking about really major transformation, right? And when you experience a transformation, you just can't stop talking about it, because it's so amazing. I do a lot of PR work because I am an expert in the field, so I do a lot of media work. I do a lot of public speaking. I speak at professional conferences as well. So to coaches, therapists, medical professionals, to introduce my approach, because obviously I can't help everybody. And so I'm always present in some sort of way. Yeah.
So let's talk about awards now. So when did you first start thinking about, well, I ought to start entering awards? When was your sort of
Um,
moment that you thought about that?
it was about 2 years in, I think. So we're talking 2019, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I thought about an award was, I mean, obviously, it was a big acknowledgement of how far I have come from a personal point of view, because 2 years prior to that, I wasn't even functioning.
No.
And now all of a sudden, I quit my job. I started my own business. I went all out there, and I basically started something that didn't even exist at the time.
Mm.
And I thought, because when you do something that people don't get,
Mm.
whether it's starting your own business or, as I said, actually doing something that's so novel that people just look at you and they don't understand
Uh-oh.
what you're doing.
Mm.
And that's when I first thought about getting involved with awards.
Mm.
So, but it wasn't like tooting my own horn as such. It was more about credibility,
Yeah.
because when you are an award-winning coach or business
Mm.
owner in general, it makes such a huge difference in how you are perceived. And especially for me, right? I came from a finance background. Finance,
Mm.
everybody understands. You're head of finance, you know, you're doing your thing. Nobody bats an eyelid. All of a sudden, I give up my very lucrative finance career to start my own thing. What do? Oh, I do narcissistic abuse recovery coaching. Oh, doesn't mean anything unless it has happened to you, right? It means absolutely nothing. When I train as a hypnotherapist, I remember my dad was like, so what hocus pocus did you get up to this week? You know, because it's like people don't understand.
No.
But
No.
then, of course, when you do your thing and you keep going, you keep going, you keep going, and then obviously the reward will come in. But what an award does is really establish the credibility. I know that some people, you know, like the whole award thing just to, you know, flatter themselves and look at me. But I think from a business perspective, it really is about the credibility, because now nobody bats an eyelid when I say, this is what I do, this is who I am,
Mm.
and here is my track record.
Yeah.
So it's instant credibility. And again, I think it also depends on what kind of awards you go for, because obviously that's another thing that's happening right now, right? Where there's like awards left and right.
There's awards for everything.
I know. And so I'm very, very specific in the awards I go for.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, sometimes you get nominated, obviously, for an award and you don't even know about it, which is even better, because it's like, oh wow, you get that phone call, it's like, oh, you're a finalist. And I'm like, oh wow, how did that happen? So I'm just very, very particular in what award I would go for, because it has to serve that purpose of credibility, rather than just adding a list of, oh, I've won 10 awards.
So you've done a mixture, haven't you? So you've done some industry specific ones. So talk me through the industry ones that you've done.
Yeah, so I have won the International Coach of the Year 2019. That was my first award for my international effort, because it's such an international topic. It really is, because it doesn't discriminate against age or gender or nationality. It literally is everywhere. So that was the first. I then won the Silver Award for the Best Businesswoman Award. That one was particularly important for me because I am a business person.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, everybody thought I turned into this airy fairy person, which I'm not. I'm still me. I'm still running a business. It's just not something that's the norm. So winning that award actually was very important for me, as I said, for the credibility and
as a businesswoman.
Yes, because now people understand, okay, I may not understand what she's doing, but it's clearly working. Right. And then for the last 2 years, 2021 and 2022, I've been nominated as the finalist for the NLP in Healthcare Award, which for me is incredible, because that was one of those awards where I didn't actually put myself forward, where somebody else did that. And it was the first time I realized that what I'm doing actually makes a huge difference in the healthcare kind of field. Whereas before I might have just seen myself as, an international coach. But I work with complex trauma, and I've developed an approach that actually shows results. I speak to, as I told you, medical professionals and therapists and coaches, and I give training to them. And that was a big change in my mind, in the way I was perceiving myself. And it literally blew my mind, because 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I was an accountant, and now I'm actually nominated for my contributions in the mental health field. So that was really huge for me. And that's the thing with awards, right? I mean, one part of it is, okay, it's my achievement. I deserve to be rewarded for, what I have achieved. That's one thing. You have the credibility. And then sometimes it's also this, game changer, really, in the way you perceive yourself.
Absolutely. And I think, the credibility angle is massive, because you have been externally recognized for the work you're doing. People often say to me, oh, I've got to enter the awards myself. And I'm saying, well, yeah, because we are a business competition. So, when
so
you
that one actually I find very hard, because it doesn't come natural to me. And I'm more that kind of person that has this whole list of achievements throughout my whole life, but I'm also the kind of person who never really celebrated it. And I guess it's part of the healing journey that I went through as well, to actually go like, no, pause, and you really deserve recognition and acknowledgement, because what you're doing is incredible. But it doesn't come naturally to write an application and go like, oh, can you please consider me for an award? And what I actually really liked about the Business Woman Awards is that you really have to, submit solid. It's not just like tooting your own horn, going like, oh, I'm amazing. No, you actually have to,
there is quite a lot
supporting
of
documentation. And it takes quite some time to fill that in, which is a lot of commitment, I think. So
definitely. And you also got some press, didn't you, after the awards? So talk a little bit about what exposure you got as a result of awards.
Well, first of all, it gets mentioned, obviously, when you get media coverage. So multi-award winning trauma recovery coach, narcissistic abuse recovery coach sounds very different than narcissistic abuse recovery coach. And I got some local press, I got some national press in like various women's magazines and newspapers. Got some international press as well, and just for the fun of it, because when you start doing PR work, you kind of can start playing around with it a little bit. Just for the fun of it, I actually sent the press release for the Businesswoman Awards. I translated into German, because I'm German, very badly so, because my German isn't very great, but I translated it and sent it to the newspaper of my hometown. And they actually ran like a half-page article. And that, obviously, I got so many messages, because obviously I come from a very small town. So everybody knows my parents. They would call my parents, and I did it for my parents, to be honest. It's just like, they're like, oh my God, like I saw your daughter in the paper. And so for like a week or so, it was like that massive big deal in that small town.
Huge.
And people reaching out. And for me, it was very satisfactory, I have to say, because back then I left Germany like 20 years ago almost. But back then I trained as a tax accountant, and very proper. And I looked like this, right? I had my tattoos, I had my colored hair, and it was always like, you will never get a job, and this is just a phase, and like all those things, right? And I always was very solid in who I was, right? And I just ignored all of that. But of course, everybody knew better, right? So now 20 years later, all of a sudden I win the Best Businesswoman Award, Silver Award for coaching in the UK. And they ran that article. And for me, it was so satisfying to all the
Very.
naysayers that 20 years ago told me that you will never get anywhere. Nobody will ever offer you a job. And I'm like, well, look at me now. So I have to say that gave me a lot of satisfaction.
That is amazing. Well, we always like to finish up with what's your plans? So what are you doing? What are you up to this year? And what does the future hold?
This year, I think it's going to be pretty mellow. I'm a little bit in research and development phase. When you develop new products and new offerings, I'm currently working on my training program because it's something that's been requested on numerous occasions. So I train other coaches, therapists, medical professionals so they can help their clients better. And I've done a lot of PR work this year, especially around Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day and things like that. But then next year is going to be then the release of all the new products. And I'm actually very excited because there's so much happening right now. It feels like the lid is about to blow off, which is a little bit scary as well, because you kind of never feel ready for when, it happens. But because it's such a hot topic and it's being talked about more and more, I mean, if you just think about the Love Island discussion that's going on right now, I mean, I've never watched it, but it's always been like that. Nobody ever said anything. It was just entertainment. It was just drama. Now all of a sudden they're getting called out on their behavior. So there is like so much shift happening at the moment. So next year I expect to be a really, really interesting year for me, for my work, and for that line of that field in general, I think.
Wow. Well, thanks for joining me today. You're an incredibly inspiring lady. And I do urge anyone listening to the podcast to go and look you up and find out more information about what you do. And if they know anyone who is suffering from narcissistic abuse, get in touch with you. So thank you for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I look forward to watching your journey because it's very exciting.
I'm excited.
So thank you very much. Take care now.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.